As we have gone through details related to list and set, now let us get an overview of dict and tuple. Both dict and tuple will contain group of heterogeneous elements. Heterogeneous means they are nothing but of different type. Each element can be of different type when it comes to dict or tuple. In contrast with the list and set, where we have homogeneous elements, with respect to dict and tuple, we have heterogeneous elements. Keep in mind that even list and set will actually support having different types of elements, but fundamentally we should not be using those when we need to store the elements of different type. In that scenario, we should fall back onto dict or tuple. When it comes to dict, each element is a key value pair. When I say key value pair, the keys are typically unique. All the keys which are nothing but first part of each element in dict are typically unique. The example of dict is this one. It is typically enclosed in curly braces, and the first element is 1 colon A, 1 is key and A is value. The second element is 2 colon B, 2 is the key and B is value, so on and so forth. Empty dict can be initialized using curly braces like this or using constructor like this. So you can initialize the dicts either by using empty curly braces or dict constructor. When it comes to tuple, tuple is also a group of heterogeneous elements, as I have emphasized earlier. We can access the elements in tuple only by positional notation, which means we have to pass the index in square brackets and we should be able to access the elements in tuple. When it comes to dict, the elements are typically accessed by passing the key. So if you say dict of 1, in the case of this dict, it will actually return A. If we say dict of 2, it will return B, so and so forth. We will see how to access elements in the dicts at a later point in time, either as part of this topic or subsequent topics. So don't worry too much about how to access elements in dict. With respect to tuple, we typically access the elements using square brackets. Tuple can be created by enclosing elements in circular brackets like this. Example is this one. Now let's get into the details with respect to how we typically initialize them, how to get the information about them, so on and so forth. So this is how you can actually create the dict. You can say d equal to, in curly braces, you can pass the elements comma separated. Within each element, the key and value are separated using colon. It is mandatory to have a colon between key and value. However, it is not mandatory to have a space. Even without space between key and value, you should be able to create the dict. Even this space is optional. However, for readability purpose, just following the basic punctuation rules of English, I am just specifying the space after the colon and also after comma. If you want, you can actually remove those spaces. Spaces are not mandatory while defining the dicts or even tuples. That being said, now the dict is created. The dict name is D. You can print the elements in dict just by running this. This is the representation function output of the dict class or dict object. To get the type of dict, you just have to use type function like this. And you can see the type of D is nothing but dict. You can initialize empty dict by saying D equal to dict in circular brackets like this. You can actually get the output. As it is empty, we are not seeing anything. The output is in curly braces. Here we are seeing empty curly braces. You can also initialize the dict using curly braces like this. Even though sets are typically initialized using curly braces, you cannot initialize empty set using curly braces. You have to use set constructor because the curly braces are given to dict when it comes to initializing the empty dict. You can actually get the type of a D. In this case, it is of type dict. And this is how you should be able to create the dict object. How to access the elements in the dict, how to manipulate them, we will see as part of the subsequent topics. Now, when it comes to tuple, this is how you typically initialize tuple. You just have to pass all the elements in circular brackets like this, and you can see that it has 4 elements: 1, Scott, Tiger, and 1000. All of them are comma separated. You can get the type of tuple by saying type of T like this. You can actually get the elements in the tuple like this. This is the representation function output for the tuple. You can initialize the empty tuple like this. You can actually get the output, validate the type. You can also initialize empty tuple using constructor like this. You can actually see the output of T, which is nothing but circular brackets. Now, with respect to dict, when it comes to each element, you can see that The keys are of type strings. ID, first name, last name, and amount are of type strings. And the values, when it comes to ID, it is of type integer. When it comes to first name and last name, they are of type strings. When it comes to amount, it is of type float or double, which means each element value can be of different type when it comes to dict. So dict or tuple typically contain group of heterogeneous elements. If you want to create a data structure with a group of homogeneous elements, then we need to use list or set as we have seen as part of the earlier section. Now, as we have understood the fundamental definition of dict and tuple and also how to initialize them, now let's understand how to access and manipulate those things as part of the subsequent topics.